Okay, welcome back to our continuing coverage of the 2024 Northern Ireland Charity Scramble held at Craigantlet, and this is the first video featuring the racing highlights from the Saturday's race programme. But before we get down to the racing, you can see here that since the Friday night, the track conditions worsened because we did have an unscheduled monsoon shower just as practice got underway, when the organisers then decided to postpone the remainder of the practice for about an hour or so until things improved, which, to be fair, they did, but the damage to the track and the paddock was already done. And in fact, some riders just decided not to take part at all because of the worsening track conditions, and they just simply headed home. But the hardy souls that stayed behind still left us with just about enough riders to make a race of it. So you may see some lesser fields of riders as they line up at the start line, although at the end of the day, this entire event was, of course, all for a good cause and to raise much needed cash for two very worthwhile charities.
No, this is the first race of the day.
So let's begin with our first race of the Saturday afternoon. This is race 1 for the pre-65s, pre-70s and the pre-1974s. That bottom part of the track is very wet. It's quite hard even for the riders just to get off the line, but you'll certainly see a difference in the track conditions as these riders make their way up the hill. So these are basically the vintage bikes of this event. Now, one of the other changes that the organisers made to the track for this Saturday's race programme was that the bikes no longer go right up to the top of the hill as they did on the Friday, and that's all due to the track conditions, which of course subsequently now makes the racing and the lap, of course, of the track much shorter. So these races on the Saturday are going to be very short and very quick, with 4 laps for each class. So let's pick up our race leader as he comes down from the top of the track. It's number 26, James Thompson, on one of Cecil Pearson's Rickman Jap bikes. In second position is number 33, John Griffiths. I think that's Stuart McClurg there just going through on the Michael. Number 44 is Adrian Lappin, also riding a Cecil Pearson Jap. But here's your race leader, James Thompson, already on his second lap. So as I said, these races are very short and very quick because the bikes don't go to the top of the hill. Still John Griffiths there, number 33 in second position. Number 111 is now moved up to third place. That's Harry Stitt, so he must have passed Stuart McClurg there on the Michael. So it's young Harry Stitt there in third position. We're taking a look at number 44. That's Adrian Lappin, certainly one of the hardest working committee members at this Northern Ireland Classic Scramble Club. Adrian seems to have a hand in just about everything that takes place at this 2-day event. But it's James Thompson there, your race leader, number 26, although you can't read his number. It's still second place, John Griffiths, being chased by number 111, Harry Stitt. So as you can see, the track conditions very precarious at this stage, so I don't think you're going to see a lot of good, fast racing on the Saturday due to the track conditions. So that's certainly going to be a problem for the lap scorers here on the Saturday, trying to make out the rider numbers. So it's going to be a difficult task for our lap scorers, but there's your race leader just crossing the line to start his last and final lap. It's number 26, James Thompson, who wasn't, of course, racing on the Friday evening. James is just recovering from a quite horrendous mountain bike injury that he suffered while out training on his mountain bike. So James only getting back to fitness as we speak. But here's your second and third placed riders. It's still John Griffiths in second position with Harry Stitt, number 111 in third. So as our second and third place riders head down to the bottom of the track, we're waiting on our race leader coming up to take the checkered flag. So it's going to be his first win of the afternoon for number 26, James Thompson there on the left. And just coming up the hill will be our second and third place riders. So it looks like Harry Stitt has managed to pass John Griffiths before the checkered flag. So it's going to be John Griffiths crossing the line in third. So that concludes our first race of the afternoon. As we now move on to the first of our twin shock races. This is race 2 for the twin shock grade C class. We have 3 classes of twin shocks for you to take a look at. So as the riders make their way up the hill, it looks like Lewis Paul's made quite a good start there in second position on the Husqvarna machine. Now it might be quite difficult to name the riders in these races due to the very muddy conditions, but here's your race leader coming over the line. I'll try and work out who that actual leader is once I can read his race number. So as the riders begin lap 1, looks like the rider at the front there is riding an old RM Suzuki bike, maybe a 400, and that might even be number 511. That could be Peter Denny who's riding that Suzuki, but don't quote me on that particular fact, because all these numbers are almost unreadable. So I'm just going to assume that it's Peter Denny in first position. It's definitely Lewis Paul in second place, number 28 on the Husqvarna. But as you can see, as the riders go through, it's almost impossible to identify the riders and their bikes, with their numbers quite badly obscured with the track conditions. But the riders still managing to cope with the slidey conditions here at Craigantlet. And here's your race leader coming up to start at lap 2. It looks like it could still be Peter Denny in first position. And in second position, it's this man here, number 28. That's Lewis Paul. And you may remember that was one of the nice Husqvarnas that we took a look at during our paddock walkabout videos. But another one of the changes that the organisers have made to the Saturday's race programme is that we were scheduled to have 24 races on the Saturday, but that has now been cut back to 14 or 15 races. So basically what we have now is 2 blocks of racing as opposed to the scheduled 3 blocks for the Saturday. So as I said, not a lot of fast racing going on because of the track conditions. And I must say a big well done to everybody who stayed behind to still take part in this charity race event, because I do know that as that monsoon shower of rain was falling on the Saturday morning, there was many people packing up and heading home, thinking of course the worst, that this event was going to be cancelled altogether. But well done to everybody who stayed behind to still compete in this charity race event. So it looks like Peter Denny is starting his last and final lap of this race. As I said, it's not so much about racing, but just trying to keep that bike upright and on the track. I do remember when I raced my old Michael back in the day, I absolutely hated these kind of track conditions, because I was bad enough in the dry race conditions, and I absolutely hated riding in these slippy conditions. We'll take a look at number 28 in second position. It's Lewis Paul. But looks like Peter Denny could be heading for his first race win of the day. Lewis Paul certainly doing well there in second position and keeping the bike upright. Another rider there on what looks like an old DT Yamaha, but it's a win for Peter Denny with Lewis Paul in second position. Okay, so we're moving on to the second of the Twin Shock races. This is race 3, and this is the Twin Shock Grade B class. And you can see that bottom part of the start line very wet indeed, so there should be some nice rooster tails when these guys leave the line. Another good lineup of Twin Shock Grade B riders as they all move in to turn 1, but as I said, the track is I was going to say the track is very slippy, and it looks like we've had a collision between 3 riders going into turn 1, but as they head up the slippy hill, so I'll do my very best to try and pick out the riders' numbers and names, and I think that looks like it could be number 113 at the front of that pack. I think that's Andrew Mitchell on his YZ Yamaha. Certainly looks like number 113. Second position looks like it could now be number 46. I think that could be Eddie Hampton in second position. So here's your race leader coming round. Now remember, these bikes don't have any electronic transponders fitted to them like they do have in modern motocross. This is old school vintage racing, whereby 2 very capable lap scorers sit at the side of the track recording the riders' numbers as they cross the line. But it could be a very difficult day for those hard-working lap scorers in these current conditions. We're just waiting on our riders emerging from the top of the hill just to start lap 2, and it looks like we've got a change of leadership at the front. I think that is now number 461 in pole position. I think that could be John Reid, but don't quote me on that particular fact. It looks like John's also riding one of those YZ Yamahas, so it looks like it's John Reid in first position with Andrew Mitchell in second. John's another rider that's not listed in the race programme, but I'm still quite confident that this is John Reid on this what looks like a YZ 465 or maybe a YZ 490 Yamaha. There's Andrew Mitchell there in second position. I'll just try and pick up a few of the other riders if we can read their numbers, but as you can see, it's not too easy. It looks like we've got a couple of riders had a bit of a collision there. It looks like that's number 3. I think that's Eddie Murray there with his old Michael. So here's your race leader. Looks like number 461. I think that's John Reid, who's still at the front of this pack. Andrew Mitchell there in second position. Can't really make out that third placed rider, but we'll do our best. Number 46 just going through there. I think that was Eddie Hampton riding his old Michael. But as you can see, not exactly fast and furious racing, because most of these guys are just trying to keep their bikes upright and on the track. But there's your race leader heading down, possibly to start his last lap of this race. That's number 461, John Reid. As we take a look at number 40 there, that's John Colling, another one of the hard-working committee members. I think John was the clerk of the course at this Friday evening's race scramble. So John taking the day off and racing here on the Saturday. As we take a look at number 111, that's Ian McMahon on his big 4-stroke Yamaha machine. So Ian appears to be going very well on that big Yamaha. So we take a look at number 46 again. That's Eddie Hampton on his what looks like an old 1978 or 79 Michael, but of course it's all decked out in that white livery, although it's quite hard to see the white from the mud, but nevertheless, number 7 just going through there. I think that could be Tom Paul, also riding what looks like a late 1970s Michael. But it's a win for number 461, John Reed, with number 113, Andrew Mitchell, in second position. Which now brings us to the first race for the big boys of the Twin Shock Grade A class. Not too many bikes in this Twin Shock Grade A, but certainly enough riders to make a decent race of it. So as the riders leave the line, as you can see, it's very wet at that bottom section of the track. So here's your race leader coming up towards us, and it looks like it's number 22, Tommy Merton, who's already won 3 races on the Friday night. So it's Tommy Merton with the early lead. Once again, quite difficult to pick out some of the riders' numbers. Number 5 there is John Allen, or Mad John as he used to be known. In fact, I do remember back in the day John used to have a shirt with his name Mad John written on the back, so it certainly looks like he's going quite well on that number 5 Michael. So there's your race leader, number 22, Tommy Merton, on the HVA Factory 450 Husqvarna 2-stroke liquid cooled bike. Try and pick up a few more of the riders. I think that's number 169 going through there. I think that could be Stephen Beattie on his 490 Michael, but Tommy Merton already completing another racing lap, going very quick on that 2-stroke Husky. And as far as I'm aware, this bike here is owned by Andy Elliott at HVA Factory. So I'm assuming that Tommy is a sponsored rider on that very quick 2-stroke bike. So we're taking a look at number 344 there. That's Ian Dunlop riding another 490 Michael. Looks like Stephen Beattie. Looks like Stephen Beattie has just slipped in the corner there. Another victim of the very slippy track conditions, but looks like Stephen's okay. So here's your race leader as he comes up the hill to complete another lap. It's still Tommy Merton on that HVA Factory Husqvarna. There's your second placed man coming up the hill, and if we can get a look at his number, we'll be able to tell you who it is. It is indeed in number 339. That's Stuart McClurg on the James Brown sponsored Michael, a very talented young rider, Stuart. There's your third placed man. I think that's number 24. That could be Chris Lappin, or maybe even Stuart Lappin, I don't know, but certainly riding one of those big 4-stroke Husqvarnas. Number 5 again is John Allen on the 490 Michael, or as I said, Mad John as he's known to his friends, but we'll just simply call him John. John's going very well there on that old German Michael. But it certainly is a bit of a shame about what happened to the weather, which is of course something that the organisers can't control, but I must admit, when the weather's good and nice and dry at this track, it's absolutely fantastic to ride, not to mention of course the superb views that you get from the top part of the racetrack. So there's your race leader. It's still number 22, Tommy Merton. Tommy looking very comfortable there at the front of his pack. There's your second placed rider, Stuart McClurg. I think Stuart's had quite a good day thus far. He had a good Friday evening, certainly. I think he finished second in both of the Twin Shock A-class races on the Friday evening, so Stuart again going very well. So as our race leader comes up the hill to take the checkered flag, this will be his fourth race win of the 2 days. Tommy Merton won 3 races on the Friday evening, so this is race win at number 4. Now it looks like it's going to be Stuart McClurg who's coming up to cross the line to take another second place, so well done to Stuart on the Michael, and just coming across the line in third, it looks like it's Chris Lappin on the 4-stroke Husky. So we're going straight into the first of the youth races for the Saturday. This is the Big Wheel 85s, the 125s and the 254-stroke for the youth classes. So this could be quite heavy going for these smaller machines. So as they come up the hill to start lap 1, it looks like it's number 22, which again is another rider that we can't identify because these youth classes, they don't have any information with regards runners or riders for the youth bikes, but I'll certainly do my very best to see if we can pick out one or two of them. But I certainly recognise a rider in second position. There's no mistaking at all that that is number 10, little Alfie Heron, a very talented young rider, and as you can see he's very quick on that 85cc Husqvarna, hassling that number 22 rider at the front. Now I did post a separate video about Alfie Heron when he was racing against these 125s and 250 4-strokes from a couple of years ago when Alfie was riding a little 65cc Husqvarna, and he absolutely blitzed the 125 and the 250 4-stroke. So as you can see, this guy is super talented and certainly a star of the future. But there's your second placed rider, number 22, who appears to be riding what looks like a little 125 KTM 2-stroke machine, whose name, of course, I'm unable to name because we don't have any list of runners and riders for this class. But this is certainly your race leader coming up the hill to complete another racing lap. It's Alfie Heron, number 10, who is, I think, riding an 85cc Husqvarna. And as you can see, with the nice sunshine that we have here on the Saturday now, the track conditions are improving ever so slightly, but by the end of the day there wasn't an awful lot of improvement in the race conditions. It was basically slippy and slidey all through the Saturday's race programme. Now, we also normally get quite a good contingent of riders attending this charity event from the UK mainland each year, but it was very disappointing not to see many riders from the UK take to this track this year. But certainly a big thanks to Andy Elliott and I think it was Matt Yates who made the journey from the UK to attend and race at this event. So I think Andy Elliott and Matt Yates were about the only contingent from the UK to race at this year's charity event. So well done to all of them. So we're taking a look at our little motocross racing protege. That's number 10 there, Alfie Heron, your race leader. And Alfie at least leading the Big Wheel 85 part of this combined race, and this number 22 rider here is the leader of the 125 part of this combined youth class race. So as I said, we have at least 14 or possibly even 15 races to get through here on the Saturday, and you'll see at least 7 of these races in this particular video, with the remaining races being shown on the last and final part in part 4. But it's a win for Alfie Heron, number 10, for the big wheel 85 class of this race. So another well done to Alfie, and it looks like it's going to be number 22 on the 125 KTM who is going to take the win in the 125 cc class. But you can see, as I was saying about the views that you get from the top of this track, there's no better place to hold a classic scramble than this track here at Ballysallagh Road when the weather is good and the track is dry. But we're going to press on with the next youth class race, and this of course is race 6 for the small wheel 65s and the small wheel 85. So this is going to be quite hard going for these little bikes with their very small wheels. So we're just waiting on the riders leaving the line, which they do quite successfully. It looks like it's number 17 that's in the lead on what looks like a little CR85. A rider, as I said again, we don't have any name for. In fact, most of the riders in this race are not even listed in the race programme, which is a bit of a shame. But it certainly is number 17, your early race leader. So we'll see how these youngsters get on with their smaller bikes, with their little wheels. Which is another reason why the organisers decided to cut out the hillside part of the track on the Saturday, because these little bikes were struggling to even cope with the conditions on this lower part of the track, as you can see. So it was just to let the youngsters try and negotiate most of the track without having to take to the hill. So one of our volunteer marshals there helping a young man to lift his bike, because as you know, when you drop these bikes in these muddy conditions, they can almost weigh twice as much when you go to try and pick them up. But we're looking at number 5 there on the 85 KTM, sorry. It looks like our race leader, number 17, has dropped his bike going down the step, and we have 2 fallers at the bottom of the hill as well. So as you can see, these youngsters still finding it very hard to cope with these wet and sticky track conditions. But this young man here appears to have got his little 65cc bike hooked up. I don't know the number on that machine. Certainly looks like it could be number 108. That's what it looks like on his number on the side there. So that might even be young Cooper McCamley at a rough guess. So you can see it's hard going for these guys on the small wheel bikes, but these guys on the bigger big wheel machines finding it a bit easier to negotiate some of the turns, but still heavy going in these wet conditions. It looks like our number 17 bike is up and running once again, and he was our early race leader as he started lap 1, so thankfully he's up and running once again, and hopefully he can make up a couple of track positions before the end of this race. But that's something that we hopefully will look into for next year's Charity Scramble. We'll try and get a full list of the riders and racers when we come to putting these videos together. So we're currently looking at number 774, which looks like he's riding a little 65 or 85 small wheel Yamaha, and I think that's Eddie Murray's son there, who, as I said in a previous video, this is his first time out on a motocross machine, so he's certainly got a baptism of fire trying to race that KTM in these very slippy conditions. But as I said, you're not going to see too much in the way of fast and furious racing in these next couple of videos due to the track conditions. And on the day, as I said, it was basically just a case of trying to get your bike to complete all of the laps rather than trying to catch the rider in front. But these younger guys on these small wheel machines, as you can see, very tricky conditions for these young riders. So we're back with number 5 on what looks like a KTM, probably an 85cc bike. Number 108 again, which I think is Cooper McCamley, but I could be wrong in that respect, so apologies again if that's the wrong name of the rider on this bike. But if it is young Cooper, he's doing very well up to this point in the race. But as I said, we have 14 or 15 races to get through here on the Saturday, and not the 24 races that we originally scheduled, because rather than have the 3 blocks of races, the organisers have cut that down to 2 blocks of racing, just purely due to these very sticky track conditions. So I think this is our race leader who's coming up to take the checkered flag. I haven't a clue who the rider is, but he's certainly crossed the line in first position. I think that's number 108, Cooper McCanley. So well done to that young man for completing all 4 laps. So that brings us on to race 7. This is the pre-1977 class for their first race of the day. Not too many riders in this class, as you can imagine. A lot of that was, again, due to the racing conditions, but there's never been a big turnout of pre-77 bikes anyhow for this class. But as they make their way up the hill, it looks like it's John Griffiths on the big CCM who's your race leader. Second place, I think, is Chris Lappin, number 24, on the 2-stroke CZ bike. So John Griffiths this time out on CCM rather than riding one of Cecil's Jap machines. Whoops. Well, looks like John's stalled at the big CCM, but that was actually the end of John's race, because I think his big CCM nipped up and he couldn't get the bike to start again. So that was basically the end of John Griffiths' pre-1977 race. So that makes this young man here at number 24, I think that's Chris Lappin, your race leader. And I think in second place, I think that's number 339, so that should be Stuart McClurg, as another rider bites the wet dust. Looks like he's riding a little DT 175 or 250 Yamaha. Number 7 just making his way through there. And you can see even these pre-1977 riders still finding it hard going trying to get these bikes around this racetrack. But I don't know, but it looks like he could have a road tyre on the back of that little Yamaha. There's John Griffiths parked up with his CCM, so that will be the end of John Griffiths' 1977 race. But here's your race leader, number 24. I think that's Chris Lappin on the Czechoslovakian two-stroke CZ bike. But you can see Chris Lappin has got quite a good turn of speed in these wet conditions. Sometimes the best way to ride in these conditions is to keep that back wheel spinning so as not to let it clog up with dirt. So that's easy for me to say sitting here, of course, but I think that's Stuart McClurg again there in second position on what looks like it could be an old 74 or maybe even a 1975 Maiko. Slipping and sliding his way around the track. As I said, these bikes belong to James Brown, and Stuart has the privilege of riding them at these kind of vintage events. It looks like that rider on the big BSA is calling it a day and heading to the bar for his first pint of the day, number 118 on the BSA. But there's your race leader, absolutely cruising around this track, number 24, Chris Lappin. Looks like Chris is cruising to the finish line. There's your second place man, Stuart McClurg, on the Maiko. Looks like Stuart's heading for another second place finish in this pre-1977 class, but it's not been vintage racing here on the Saturday. There's not much in the way of overtaking or racing these bikes. It's basically, as I said, just a job of getting around the track. Number 7 there is Tom Paul. Looks like Tom's riding a CZ this time round, but it's a win for number 24, Chris Lappin. So that brings our first block of racing for the Saturday evening to a close. Not very much in the way of excitement, but we will be back with the last and final video from the 2024 Charity Scramble in Northern Ireland when we return to Classic Dirt Bike TV.